Alrighty. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today. We've got myself, Case, and Derek.
Hello.
Hi, Derek. To walk through some methods of doing background research on properties, home ownership, taxes. Maybe you've got a buyer writing an offer on a property or a seller that has questions prior to listing. So our goal today is to go through a couple different methods of analyzing. So, Derek, what are some common questions we run into as a buyer's agent or a seller that might be that we might have to address?
Yeah, a lot of questions that we get are about how to use the GIS and also how to look up tax information, whether it's for a purchase agreement or if you have somebody who is interested in just gathering that information. So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about how to look up that information?
Sure. Well, yeah, we'll start with first a very easy method. So we're going to go straight to our MLS first. It's got quite a bit of information in here. So go ahead and log in using your credentials. Keep in mind as I go through this that not all of the data is always correct in the MLS because it syndicates from other different websites and it's not always correct. So I live at 15593 Pine. Ooh. And so we're going to use that listing. We purchased our home 2 years and 2 months ago. So I'll walk you through this property like we're doing research on selling it today. So you can see it sold for $129,900. Now we've got our information here. So right now we're stalking for a buyer that's interested in purchasing or a seller that wants to look at the background of a property. And so you can see the last sold date on 1/12, sold for $129,900. It was a conventional mortgage, no seller's concessions, very basic. You guys know how to use the MLS. One tab that some people forget about is the tax info tab up here. And this is going to give you our school district code, our tax ID, which is equivalent to parcel ID number. It gives our residential zoning, the prior assessments, the new assessments, who owns it. So Case and Laura do. We purchased it from Amanda and Andrew Potts. You can see what type of terms they were, what the prior sale price was. So this gives you a lot of good background here. But sometimes we need to go a little bit further in depth. And diving into those is very important. Oh, one thing I'll add here. You can pull up prior listing documents. So if you jump into documents, we can pull up the prior seller's disclosure. So if I go through here, we can see the working condition of the property. So I've lived here 2.5 years and I forgot how old the roof was, so this is nice. So the main roof is 12 years old now, 12.5 years old. And I can go through the property details and remind myself of anything that's needed. And it's also great for stalking to see if any existing seller might be deceptive or if you're purchasing a home, maybe an investor bought it and isn't disclosing anything. This gives you some way to track down some information. So we'll go a little bit farther. Derek, do you have questions on the MLS before we keep going?
Yeah, the tax info page, are the numbers in there always correct, or should we check another website?
That's a good question. Typically, they're correct because this is pulled straight from our county's tax information. However, occasionally we'll find a property. In fact, I think I can come up with one. No, I can't remember the address. That's all right. So sometimes there'll be properties where the address doesn't perfectly match. Perhaps they used a drive instead of a lane, or it's a duplex, so they have a combination of addresses, so it's not pulling tax data. Often with condos, also the same thing. But yes, typically it is correct. I would recommend if you're writing a purchase agreement to dive into the county-specific GIS information as opposed to pulling it from this. If you're just doing basic research, this is a pretty quick and dirty way to do that.
Is there a particular GIS that you would use for each city, or is there just one website for everything?
That's a great question. So I have my GIS information stored under my bookmarks here. So under data and mapping, I have the 3 counties we work in primarily are Muskegon, Ottawa, I guess Holland, and then Kent County. So I have all of them up here. And so typically, though, you can search using Google. Let's say we're looking in Allegan, and I don't have it saved. If I just say or search Allegan County GIS, it's probably going to show up in the first one or two things. Yep, so there you go. So Allegan County GIS services, they're quite similar from county to county. So typically there's a picture of a map or a way to jump into the system. So yep, there you are. So Allegan County Parcel Viewer. So most counties, if you just search for the county on Google, you'll be able to find it. I would bookmark the ones you're using commonly so that you can access it and don't have to search for it every time.
Very cool. Are there any times where your client will actually ask for the GIS information?
Oh yeah, yep. Now when I do a listing, I actually include the parcel viewer if it's anything more than just a city lot, so you can see the parcel dimensions and where it sits in the city.
Perfect.
All right, we'll load in just a moment. All right, so there's a lot of different ways to explore here. You can use your scrolling mouse or your plus buttons to zoom in and explore. So perhaps you've got a client looking for a piece of property. You can do that from here. I typically use the search button. And now we can search by ID, address, or owner. So let's search by address this time. And typically you'll just type in the first few numbers and it'll auto-populate the addresses that are available. And in this case it's not, so that's okay. Alright, so you can see here, it automatically pulls up a quick parcel viewer along with a quick summary here. Now there's a few things we can do in this area. We can change it from street map to imagery. We can zoom in and out again, see where the parcels line. This is kind of cool. You can see where we put our garden in. You can see the boundaries of the property. Keep in mind that the imagery and the parcel dimensions don't always align perfectly. Also, it's pretty image heavy, and so you may lose your images when you're moving around. So these are approximate boundaries. You can actually see there's a concrete line at the tip of my mouse, so you can see that this boundary is off by probably 2 or 3 feet from all reality. So keep in mind that image doesn't perfectly align with the actual property dimensions. So anyway, we can turn on and off some features here. So we'll go to change visible map layers. This is quite similar from county to county, so if you explore, you'll be able to find it. So we can turn on parcel dimensions. Other things I use might be road center lines. You can turn on contours, which is pretty cool. This is a pretty flat area, so there's not too much going on here. And that's about all I use on this. Some other things you can do are hill shade to see dimensions if you're in a certain area. Like you can see this is a low lying area on the right hand side. I'm pointing at the screen, that's not going to be helpful. But you can see this is nice to have this. So if you're zooming in now, you know where the highlands and the lowlands are. You've got our contour dimensions. I'm going to turn that off really quickly by going back into contours. Alrighty, so I think we've got our information here. You know how to turn on contours, turn them off, view partial dimensions. So let's go get a detailed request. So I'm going to hit the back button here. Oh, there we go. I'm going to close that. There we are. So I want to pull this property report up. So if I click any parcel, it's going to pop up with the owner information, the acreage. But if I want more information, I can click on my Ottawa property summary, or maybe my Kent, or whatever button that might say depending on your county. And this is going to open up a parcel report specific to that property. So we've got our information here. I can click on taxes, do a tax search. It goes back to the GI map. Look at sales history, split history. You can be really creepy and stalk people and figure out what they owe on their home. So nothing's a secret with the government. A big thing here is you can see our exemption. So Laura and I live here. We bought it in 2015. I don't know why this year is missing. That's kind of weird. But we bought it in 2015, and our taxable value has gone up, and we have 100% homestead, which means we currently live there. We can also pull up our legal description, which is pretty cool. And so that gives us a good ability to do that background research on the property. All right, so that about summarizes our ability to do GIS research on the county websites. If we go to another service, say Kent, it's going to look pretty similar. Just do a little bit of exploration. You're going to find very similar features from one to the other. So you saw Allegan, Ottawa, and here's Kent County, and it's going to look very similar. So now we can search for Parcel. We can zoom in and out so our address buttons moved. But from county to county, they're quite similar. So do your research, explore a bit, and you'll be able to find it. All right, so I'm going to show you two other services we can use to do our research. So I'll open that internet back up. Another service we have, as we actually pay for because we're real estate agents, we're realtors, is OurPR. OurPR is a website kind of like our county GIS, but it pulls from other sources. So it often has our square footage, it'll have lot dimensions, parcel information, sales history. Some other neat things is it talks about schools, walking distance, what's close and what's far away. So I'll quickly type in my address again here. All right, so this gives us a pretty good estimate actually. So we paid $130 for it 2 years ago. $152 is probably a little bit on the low side, but if we have done no updates, that's about right. Our property is probably worth $165 or $170 today, but we did put a lot of work into it. So that estimate's pretty good. Again, we have a confidence range, which is neat. It tells about how fast the property's gone up in value in terms of its estimation. We've got what type of property. I like this too because we've got our street view. I can zoom back and forth, and you can really do some stalking on here. It pulls our county data, history records from WMLAR, our West Michigan Lakeshore Association, as well as the county. So it's pretty cool. If we zoom down a bit further, it will tell us some information. So in this case, it didn't know how many bed or bath. It gives estimation of home value, location, walkability, what schools are nearby. So my kids would go to Griffin, then Central, or Grand Haven. I don't know, that's not quite right. So again, there's error in your data, so keep that in mind. But this is a great type. Again, creepy. You can see our loan amount when we purchased it, our mortgage type, and our assessed value. So this is really useful to pull data, do your research, and ensure you've got the due diligence to buy or sell some land. So one other thing I'm going to show you is called BS&A. These are all free websites, and this is a countrywide service you can use. So we first need to find our own municipality. So we're going to click here, and I'm just going to search Grand Haven. Grand Haven Township. And this is going to pull up a new Access My Gov. And now I can again type in my address. Alright, so it's pulled up our parcel information. And now we're going to go through the same steps as before. So this is triple duty. This typically is the best data we can get. In some areas it's free. You can see that Grand Haven charges us $2 for the data. I don't often pay $2 for it. I do if maybe I'm buying the property or I'm the current owner. You can see you can get it for free if you're the current owner. But you can see there's a lot of different ways to get data. The big thing is ensure you've done your due diligence. It takes just 2 or 3 minutes to look up one property on 2 or 3 different websites. And that's going to be about all that's necessary to walk through to do your own property research. But I'll have Derek ask a couple questions as I may have missed something.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions I have for you is, what if we have a property that perhaps it's bank-owned vacant land that doesn't have an address? How would we find that on the GIS?
That's a great question. So I wouldn't use Access My Gov. I would go back to your county. So we'll go back to My Ottawa, looking for property in Ottawa County. We are going to search our property parcel viewer. Now, did you drive by the property, or are you looking specifically at bank-owned properties?
Yes.
You drove by it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do, let's say you were driving down Lincoln Street and you saw a gravel driveway leading to nothing. So we want to figure out where that is. And we can do that right here. Alrighty. So we're going to zoom in on Lincoln, which is right here. So you were driving down and it was somewhere west of 231. Now I'm zooming in slowly because I'm thinking of a particular property I'm interested in looking at. There it is. Alright, so I believe this is the parcel right here. I think it's owned by the Bethkeys. So as you go through, you're going to see different parcel shapes. So this is going to give you some idea. Again, we can turn on and off imagery if that helps you figure out where it is. Perhaps you know, well, this is the old barn I drive by, and then it's somewhere in the woods. And so we're going to go back to Street Map to turn this on. So I'm interested in this parcel. Yep, Christopher Bethkey. So thank you for letting me use this as an example, Chris. I'll talk to you soon. But yeah, now we can pull this up. So this piece of land, he actually owns these 4 parcels, I believe. And so you can see our acreage, where it is, and then here's the cool thing. I hit MI Auto Summary. Perhaps you have a buyer interested. Now we also have his owner identification. So we can send him mail. Now we can be ultra creepy and we can look him up online. I have done that a few times where I reach out to a particular seller or owner that might be interested in selling. Perhaps it's a decrepit property falling apart. So we can go online and say, oh, there's Chris Bethke. So now we can send them a letter that says, hey, I want to buy your house, or I have a buyer that's interested in your home, or do you want to sell? Whatever the case is, now we can do our research and kind of understand the situation. So, does that answer your question, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. Are there mobile versions of these apps or online websites?
Yeah, they're not super mobile friendly, but you can use the same websites. I wouldn't suggest finding an application, but yeah, pull up myottawa.org on your smartphone, and it's navigable, but not super easy to use.
But it will work in a bind.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do it often.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right, cool.
I think that's it.
Alrighty. Well, very good, everybody. Do your research, explore online, and make sure you do your due diligence and check a bunch of different websites when those clients are buying your property. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.